We are in Trastevere. I know it's tempting to say Trastevere, but that's not it. Trastevere is a neighborhood just opposite the historic center. I'm looking at Ponte Sisto, a 1475 pedestrian bridge that takes you deep into the center of Rome. In 10 minutes, I can walk to the Pantheon, Piazza Navona, Campo dei Fiori, all those places. But Trastevere, on the opposite side of the river, it's less monument heavy, more atmospheric, and it's full of delicious snacks. Trastevere comes from the Latin Trastevere across the Tiber River. So think in the 4th century BC, when Rome is developing, it's like a cool place to go hang out. Some people stick around, but Romans aren't so stoked with foreigners being everywhere, and so most are relegated to this side of the Tiber. Trastevere, across the Tiber, not a super creative name, but the one that was chosen. And the Tiber is just on the other side of this wall. Now there are these huge embankment walls that prevent flooding, but if we're thinking about Trastevere for most of its history, it was this eclectic neighborhood with constant flooding on the river's edge. At least in the past century or so, people got up to lots of no good. It's still a nightlife destination. We're here. It's like, I don't have a watch, it's 5. I just looked at my phone. Before things really get very rambunctious, there are a couple of American universities here. Lots of young Romans come and hang in this neighborhood. People drink, usually not too much if they're Italian, usually too much for local customs if they're American. We may or may not see this in action, but what I recommend as a visitor to Rome, you come to Trastevere during the day, hang out, do some snacks, come back at night, have a few drinks. We're gonna do a little bit of both. First, a modern classic, the Trapizzino, an invention dating way back to 2009. It is one of the most delicious bites in town. And the first Trapizzino location is actually in Testaccio, but we're headed to this particular one, which I love because they have a full bar, table service, and one of the most extensive Lazio wine lists in town. I'm gonna order my favorite snack here. It's a chicken cacciatore Trapizzino. You can actually watch the chicken cacciatore recipe video and get the lowdown on how to make the filling. I've never tried to make the sort of pizza pocket exterior. It's this really super spongy bread with a crispy, almost eggshell-like exterior. Super delicious snack. Might have a little vino with it. Follow me. Allora, faccio un pollo alla cacciatora, del vino, 6 gemme.
Mangia camminando?
Sì. Chetti. The cups keep getting smaller. So I ordered a chicken cacciatore Trapizzino. There are other fillings. You've got meatballs, or really meatball, a single one, eggplant parm, tongue with green sauce. Today also picchio, which is like a kind of semi-spicy tomato and beef stew, pork neck stew, and braised artichoke. So you pick the filling, 1 per Trapizzino, and then you eat, well, either with table service. That's a little too fancy for my vibe right now. I'm gonna eat unglamorously on the cobblestones. One of the many pro tips and strategies I can share with you as a professional food eater is that when you go out to eat in public, just wear patterns. That way it's less obvious when you get food on you, which is a real risk with the Trapizzino because it is so good and also so messy to eat. Things happen. Meanwhile, I'm just drinking a white wine from Lazio. It's a blend of Malvasia and Trebbiano, a little maceration on the skins, giving it the orange color. Very fragrant, delicious. They'll call my name when it's ready. These are like $5, so if you want to sit down to a whole long, drawn-out meal in Trastevere, you could. I just don't have 100 recommendations for restaurants here. Trastevere is a fun place to eat. It is a challenging place to sit down at restaurants to eat. A lot of the places here are tourist traps or just kind of mid. And so that's why I really like snacking. You can have some of the best bites on a budget. Even if you're balling, you're sitting at the Derussi, you've got all the cash in the world, don't eat all your meals at a restaurant. That's a waste of calories. Many of the things that are really delicious and also really characteristic of the way that we eat here in Rome are not served at a seated place with tablecloths and silverware. In fact, food that you eat with your hands, I think is some of the more compelling stuff available. We're gonna have many of those bites today. So this is the part where I try not to eat the paper. It's an everyday struggle, but here we go. So you've got your chicken cacciatore stuffed into, it's a pizza pita. It used to be a part of a larger rectangular bun. It was cut diagonally and then toasted, sliced open and stuffed. And if you're an Italian-American person, you might be saying, Katie Parla, where's the tomato and mushrooms and peas in your chicken cacciatore? This is an Italian version. We don't make it like that here. Honestly, this is insane. So they know what's up. They don't mess with any of the breast meat. They're just using leg and thigh meat. It's so tender. It's cooked with herbs and garlic and wine and white wine vinegar. It's super tangy. And you've got like, it's juicy too. And all that delicious chicken juice is getting soaked up by the bread. So nice. Didn't stain myself. I'm getting better at this public eating. So we're going to a craft beer spot called Che Siete Venuti a fa, which basically means, what the hell did you come here for? And it is a craft beer pub opened at this point over 20 years ago. 20 years ago, there were almost no Italian craft breweries. And so they were pouring a lot of imported brews. And now it's about half and half domestic imported. Even though Italy is definitely a place with a wine identity, there's tons of Italian craft beer. It is delicious. And my favorite place to drink it is at this kind of like divey bar. Mache. They only have beer and tap water, so it's not like one of those pubs where you can come and get like a spritz or something, none of that. In fact, if you ask, they might even respond, Ma che siete venuti a fa? What the hell did you come here for? The answer is delicious, delicious craft beer. Although there is this like very good life hack. Just down the street, there's a pizzeria called L'Alimentare, and if you order the pizza there, they'll deliver it to you over here, and you can do a real carb-on-carb situation with your beer and your pizza, and it's amazing. Let's see what they got on tap today. So this is a Ritual Lab session IPA, which is IPA in Italian, so you gotta learn your terminology. Bitter flavors are really central to the Italian flavor palette, so obviously IPAs have really blown up here, but Mache has like a zillion different styles, European as well as domestic. There's some like wild ales made with grapes. Then you can find all sorts of things from like Franconia. They've got like a very deep German list, great Belgian lambics. So it's no wonder that it's on every beer tourist's itinerary. And I love coming for like a fresh, crushable beer, especially after work. Super fun. And then I live just up the hill, so I'm constantly popping in for a small beer on my way home, always running into friends. It's like the Cheers of Trastevere, if you will. So I lead tours in Trastevere and other parts of Rome, and one question people always ask me, are you allowed to drink on the street? I actually don't know the answer to this. Is it legal, Yvonne, to drink on the street? It is? Oh, tight. Okay. He thinks so. Yeah, nobody knows the law. It's fine as long as you don't get too rowdy. So far, we've been surrounded by this like gorgeous medieval and Renaissance district. The buildings are 500 to 700 years old. But I mentioned Trastevere is from the 4th century BC, so there are a lot of ancient things here too. Now, it's not quite that old, but at the very end of this street, you have the Aurelian walls. So built in around 285, a defensive wall circuit that was meant to protect the city of Rome. There are 2 miles-ish on this side of the river. The other side have another 10, and this very ambitious distance was actually impractical to defend, and so it didn't really work to protect Rome when it was attacked. But many parts of it still survive because it is so gigantic. That was the key to Roman ruins surviving. Is it too enormous to dismantle? Colosseum, Baths of Caracalla, Aurelian walls? If the answer is yes, it's probably still standing. So if you were Renaissance or medieval person in Rome and you wanted to save money on your house, instead of just building 4 walls, you would find an ancient wall, build into that, and then build the other 3 from scratch. That's the case for this building. And many others. There are so many houses built into the Aurelian wall. If you look up here, you'll see the wall is also home to a lot of plants, including capers. So that sort of cascading accumulation of greenery is a caper bush. And it's a little early in the season to start seeing the caper buds, which will then flower, and then if pollinated, turn into berries. But you'll see, let's say from like May to September or so, the whole cycle of the caper's life. Now, they grow wild everywhere. It's kind of magical. And you actually have to like kind of torture them. If you try to grow capers and give them water and nurture them, they don't want to grow. If instead they find a little space to grow their roots in an ancient wall, they thrive. Look how big this guy is. I'm on my way to Venezia, which is the most delicious supli place. And I mentioned earlier that like Trastevere is a fun place to eat. It's not always an easy place to eat well, especially if you want to sit down and have a full meal. I will put some of my faves in the description below, but what I can tell you is where not to eat. If there's like a super long line from 11 a.m. until midnight, like this situation, like I don't know what's going on. No Roman has ever eaten at this place. We're in Like a beautiful square, fine, it's cute, but like why wait in line for food that is like probably not good? I mean, just looking at it looks bad. But I guess there's room for everybody in the food space here. Like it's 6 o'clock. We don't eat dinner at 6 o'clock in Rome. Why are you lining up for a freaking fake ass trattoria? Explain that to me. I know I promised supli, but this is a worthy detour. It's Santa Maria in Trastevere, one of the many churches dedicated to the Virgin Mary. It's also the coolest, maybe. I mean, it's a tough race because you got so many of these buildings that were devoted to the Virgin Mary. People poured tons of money into building and decorating them. But I'm very partial to mosaics, so this one, it wins for me. And you can see the facade has some frescoes in the pediment, that triangular structure at the top, mosaics in gold and glass. That's all from the 12th century. So imagine that from 1100 to 1180, more or less, they were building this church, paving it in fresco and mosaic, and then subsequently stuck a Baroque porch on. So obviously this is a different style. The guys with all the swirling garments are Baroque era 17th century popes. Maybe not like really meshing stylistically, but in a way also not clashing. And when we go inside the church, you're gonna see there are many, many art historical periods competing for attention, and it all just kind of works. The church's interior is absolutely paved in marble. There are 12th and 14th century mosaics behind the apse. And the floors are paved in a 12th century mosaic style called cosmatesque, named for the family that, if not pioneered, then at least popularized the pattern. This like beautiful organization of repurposed ancient marble slabs. And there's a lot of recycling here. The columns that divide the aisles were quarried in Egypt in the 3rd century and then shipped to Rome to stand in the baths of Caracalla. In 1100, they were taken out of the baths and used here to divide the aisles, and they're single solid pieces of granite, different heights, different thicknesses. They are different heights, different thicknesses, with capitals customized to make them fit in the space. So this is Venazio, the supli master. Oof. The key is to let out the steam because, oh my God, it's quite hot. Oof. Guys, I'm fucking it up. Satisfying cheese pull. I did it wrong. You're supposed to use your senses to figure out if this is just out of the fryer. If so, you wait like 10 minutes. Take a little walk. Resist the temptation to eat the supli because this one is too hot. Burn my fingers. I don't know. This is gonna leave a mark for sure, but I also burn my tongue. Venazio's frying new supli every like 10 minutes, so you get these really hot ones out of the fryer. But you know, as a regular, just like regulate when you eat it because you could really do damage. So this is the supli classico. It's like a meat sauce risotto with a little mozzarella hiding inside. Like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have to say supli classico. You just say, give me supli. There wasn't other options. Now you got cacio e pepe, amatriciana, carbonara, some that don't use rice at all but use pasta instead. So we've had a little bit of a supli revolution, a little innovation in the industry. But for me, the classic is still the best. Let's see what bodily injury I'll commit this time. A little less dramatic of a cheese pull, but this is cacio e pepe, so it's pecorino and black pepper. I mean, it's fine. The classic's better. It's also really hot. It's really quite hot. Also, like a little less, I would say, like intense flavor. Still good. 8 out of 10. Oddio, mamma mia. This is Forme, which is on the, let's say, the quieter side of Trastevere. The neighborhood is bisected by this huge trafficy avenue called Viale di Trastevere, kind of carved out of the medieval and Renaissance quarters of Trastevere in the late 19th, early 20th century. So this part is a little bit more residential, a little quieter, and has my favorite cheese shop in the hood. And I come here for Pasquale's incredible curated selection. Everything that you see here has been hand chosen by this absolute cheese obsessed person. Got some sheep's milk cheese, pecorino di fossa, so this has been cave aged. I basically told him to give me 2 extremely strong cheeses, one stronger than the next. This cheese is from Emilia Romagna. This one's from Ragusano Siciliano, so kind of 2 diametrically, culturally opposed part of Italy. It burns. I love that. So this is a formaggio romagnolo, comes from the underappreciated part of the sister regions Emilia and Romagna. The form of cheese is aged in a cave. And then there's a great verb for this, sfossato. It is uncaved. So it's taken from the cave and then sent to this like guy who ages cheeses that he selects. There's a French name for this, I'm not gonna attempt it. Then it undergoes another aging in his cave. So it's like, it's cave bouncing. Meanwhile, oh my God, smells so nutty and rich. The Ragusano is a cow's milk cheese from Sicily. And most of the cheeses that Pasquale has are from Italy. There are a few French ones. Basically what they'll have in common is they are from extremely small producers, super characteristic of the place from which they come. And I'm just so thrilled, and I'm waiting because he's chilling the sparkling wine. I asked for Bollicina, he took it from the shelf. Gotta wait. Meanwhile, these are taralli, which are these like boiled and baked crackers from Puglia, made with really high quality extra virgin olive oil. They're very crispy and crunchy. So this is what you might call them. I guess it would go by a number of names. Gastronomia. Alimentari doesn't really kind of summarize the quality here. Dispensa, a place filled with pantry items, olive oil, capers, sottoli, which is a whole category of vegetables that have been pickled and then preserved under oil, olives, tomato, pasta, salt. So each of these products is from personal connection that Pasquale has with the producer. So more special than virtually any other place where they might be dealing with a distributor or going through all sorts of middlemen. This is like Pasquale finding his favorite spots and bringing them to the people. Buonissimo sto vino. So good. Pinot Nero and Riesling. It's from the north. I know those don't sound like Italian grapes, but they've been growing in Italy for hundreds of years. There are actually a lot of other delicious things in Trastevere. I'll put them in the notes below. But I'm full, so let's have gelato. It's our last stop. This place is called Otto Leg, and it's magic. Marco Radiccioni opened Otto Leg in a residential neighborhood way out of the center about 10 years ago. Oops, got some on my foot. And it was so nice to go out there, ride my bicycle, work up a sweat, eat the gelato. But honestly, I prefer it being in Trastevere now. So that location closed. He's got this one and one a block from my house up the hill. It's like the greatest thing ever. So Marco only uses natural ingredients. He's pretty restrained with his use of fat and sugar because he wants you to be able to actually taste the flavors. If there's too much fat, it'll coat your palate. You won't be able to taste anything. If it's too sweet, it freezes weird. And also it kind of like blows out your palate. And so what I really love about his flavors, and I got 4 of them, which is a first for me, but I wanted you to see how gorgeous this is. Flavors are pure. Ingredients are real. None of that bullshit that they put in half the other places. Well, more than half of the other gelato shops where the ingredients list is like incomprehensible because it's just all powders and oils and shit. I want to talk to you about this, but I'm enjoying this so much. It tastes so good. If you're in Trastevere, hit up these places. I put loads of other recs in the notes. And remember, you don't have to have a long, expensive meal in order to do Trastevere right. So I invite you to like and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to notifications so you get a little reminder every time a new video drops. Ciao.